On Valentine's Day, I had my gallbladder removed due to, as one doctor described it, tons of gallstones. And as a result, I've had to modify my eating to a degree to avoid certain GI issues. And this might sound a bit strange, but rather than become frustrated or bummed out about how this might affect my food choices and eating habits going forward, I've actually fully embraced it. I'm enjoying the process of learning how my body responds to food now. It's a time where I've had to really put my intuitive eating skills to good use, listening to my body and using that neutral curiosity that I talk about so often. And all of this as I discover what foods and amounts of foods work well for me at a particular meal or snack. This episode is an ice cream case study that I think you might find helpful as you navigate your own relationship with food. I'm Jeff Ash, certified nutritionist, personal trainer, intuitive eating coach, and you're listening to the Men's Intuition Podcast. So, as I pointed out in the intro to this episode, having my gallbladder removed has meant that I've had to change some things about my eating. I've had to decrease the amount of food that I eat in a particular sitting, and I've also had to decrease the amount and certain types of foods that I can eat in a certain sitting. I had pasta the other night and had about half of what I normally would eat, which, to be fair, is probably still more than a lot of people would eat in a sitting. I do love my pasta. I also had one slice of garlic bread instead of usually a couple. And that was because I'm still trying to figure out what amounts are going to leave my gut feeling good later on. And as a result, I felt great after the meal, actually. So that was nice. Comfortably full, satisfied, and good thing here too is no GI issues. But this episode is supposed to be about ice cream, right? So let's dive into the ice cream part of that. So the other day I was in the mood for some ice cream, and I hadn't had any since my surgery. That was almost 3 weeks ago now. And I thought, well, let's see how I do with ice cream. You know, I'd done okay with pasta, garlic bread, pizza, a few Girl Scout cookies, those kinds of things over the course of that time. And so I thought, hey, let's try ice cream. So to be clear, I don't compromise on my ice cream at all. It's got to be the full fat, loaded stuff for me, the good stuff. I'm not going to eat, we're not talking Halo Top here. We're not talking low fat ice cream or any of that stuff. So I went for a pint of cookie dough, which really prior to my surgery would have been a single serving for me in most cases, to be honest. I mean, I enjoy ice cream. But I knew that would be a really bad idea right now based on what I've kind of learned so far about how my body is processing food without my gallbladder, especially things that have a fair amount of fat in them. So I had maybe a fifth of the container, I guess. It's probably about right, about an inch off the top. And then I stopped and put it away. Now, for my fellow ice cream lovers out there, you may be thinking that couldn't possibly be satisfying, right? Honestly, years ago, before implementing the intuitive eating framework in my own eating, I definitely would not have been satisfied with that. I probably would have ended up eating too much and dealt with the consequences later, and if you've had your gallbladder removed, then you probably know what some of those consequences later look like. But I like having my gut feel good. So I stopped at that amount. And again, I'm still in that experimental stage of this. So I'm using a lot of curiosity here and trial and error as I go through this process. But here's the thing. I mindfully connected more with each of those few bites. I really did. I knew that if I wanted to be satisfied with that smaller amount, that I needed to pay close attention to the tastes and textures and subtleties of that ice cream, the things that I like so much about ice cream. So sure enough, I was actually quite satisfied with that small amount, if you can imagine it. Again, you ice cream lovers out there may be utterly shocked that I could be satisfied with just that small amount, but I actually was. And I can still remember in my mind right now as I'm talking about this, the texture of the cookie dough chunks, the bit of kind of a gritty texture that cookie dough can have. If you've ever taken time to really notice those subtleties in the cookie dough, you know what I'm talking about. The tiny chocolate chips as they kind of melted in my mouth, the creaminess of the ice cream in contrast to those other textures, and all of that kind of stuff. And as a thought experiment, I did ask myself a couple questions that I often suggest to my clients too. And those questions are like, would it be more satisfying if I ate more? Would I have been more satisfied if I ate more? Would I be less satisfied if I ate more? That's a question a lot of people don't realize is a good question to ask yourself. And I realized that a few more bites wouldn't really be more satisfying. I really honestly stopped and thought about it and thought, yeah, if I ate 5 more bites, I wouldn't really be any more satisfied than I'm now. If I finished this off, I wouldn't be any more satisfied. And actually, I would have been less satisfied because I know without a doubt, based on my experience so far, that I would have paid the consequences later. So it would have been quite neutral, really, had I eaten more, even aside from the potential for GI discomfort later. Now, the amount that I had was satisfying because I was eating out of taste hunger, not biological hunger. I just wanted the taste and the pleasure that ice cream brings, and I didn't really need biological nourishment. Had I needed biological nourishment, well, at that time, probably what would have been the wise thing to do would be to add something else to that. So still keep the amount of ice cream down like I did, not try and fill up on ice cream, but say, hey, what else would go along with this that might satisfy some of that biological hunger? But in this particular case, I didn't need to worry about that because I'd already had dinner. I wasn't hungry anymore, and I just wanted that taste. But, that pint of ice cream lasted me about 3 days. Eating some at different times. Each time was quite satisfying, eating a small amount like I did there. Sometimes I had it with my breakfast. Sometimes I had it with my dinner. Sometimes I had it with my lunch. Sometimes I just had it in the middle of the afternoon. And it was quite satisfying at each one of those occasions. My daughter even ate some of it. So that gives you an idea of just how much I was eating at a sitting and yet found satisfaction in that amount. Now, as I wrap this up, there are a couple of points that I did want to make. And first off, I went in with the mindset of eating an amount that would leave me satisfied and that would serve my body well. So there was no restriction involved. I wasn't worried about calorie content or how it was going to impact my waistline or any of that kind of thing. A restrictive mindset like I had when dieting would have likely led me going back and polishing it off, and then possibly going into I might as well make this count kind of mindset and continue eating all the food, right? Turning it into kind of a cheat day or something like that. And that's even aside from the fact that, with my gallbladder out now, that I have to be more mindful of that. But instead, I was actually able to neutrally look at the situation and say, this amount is what's going to leave me feeling good now and satisfied, as well as later. This is the right amount for my body right now. And that really left me feeling good about the situation. It left me feeling satisfied, good, and physically later I felt great. Second point I wanted to make was asking yourself those questions, would I be more satisfied with more? Would I be satisfied? Would I be less satisfied with more? It's not meant to get you to eat less. We can very easily get caught up in this trap of turning it into a way of getting ourselves to eat less. And that's not the point at all. It's meant to help you connect with your body and what you truly need to be satisfied. You as a unique individual. You and I are different. You'll need a different amount of ice cream to be satisfied than I will, and that's okay. So the answer for me to that question, would I be less satisfied, was actually a resounding yes in that particular case. I would have been less satisfied because I would have had a stomach ache and probably diarrhea based on what I've learned about my new body up to this point. And the fact that answering no to the question, do I need more to be more satisfied? When I answered no to that question, it was sort of a neutral. Hey, if I ate more, I wouldn't be any more satisfied or any less satisfied in the moment, but later on, I would not have been as satisfied because it probably would have had negative consequences on me. So anyway, that's my short case study on my own ice cream eating experience. And hopefully you find that helpful in your own journey as you're trying to discover the satisfaction factor in your eating and as you're navigating these intuitive eating principles, because it is so different than what so many of us are accustomed to, especially if you've been wrapped up in dieting for years. But, if you'd like to get to a place where you can approach your food from this kind of perspective that I was talking about here, it's not an overnight thing, but it can be achieved and done. And you might check out my new intuitive eating course called Equipped to Thrive. And you can learn more about that at hopedrivesme.com. And that's a video-based course, self-paced, that you can go through on your own time and learn all about these principles and get some practical ways to apply that. And then, of course, if you're a guy, you can also at hopedrivesme.com, you can learn more about my Equipped to Thrive men's community, where you can find help and support and encouragement as you go down this intuitive eating path yourself. So until next time, remember, how we eat is far more important than the specifics of what we eat.